In a town called Brovary that's outside of Kiev this morning, on a foggy morning, a helicopter has come down devastatingly, killing 14, including one child, because this helicopter has come down on a kindergarten nursery. The death toll currently is sitting at 14, although government agencies did earlier publish that the death toll was as high as 18. Now, the Interior Minister of Ukraine, as well as 2 other senior officials, have been confirmed killed. Currently, he's the most senior member of the Ukrainian government to be killed during this war. So the crash happened at 08:20 in the morning by a French helicopter, or French-made helicopter, being a Super Puma, which are a very commonly used helicopter all around the world. Now, you have to remember that the numbers being reported are a little bit all over the place, article to article. So the most recent is that it was initially over-reported, and now they're back to 14 and 1 kid dead with the 3 officials. But I've seen them up 18, 19, and 3 children involved in that. So we're not really sure exactly what the numbers are yet, but I'm guessing that will maybe come out in the future. Ukrainian Intelligence Service, the SBU, are investigating the crash, but say it could be a number of weeks until we have any idea what the causes of this were. Anywhere from sabotage of the aircraft, the more likely, and where fingers are pointing, is at pilot error and conditions where helicopters should not have been flying, because all the photographs you can see, a very foggy morning. I wasn't there, I'm not a pilot, I can't say, but that is where most people are pointing at the moment. And there is also the chance, and although this may be very unlikely, in somewhere like Ukraine at the moment where there is air defence everywhere, air defence is not immune to a blue-on-blue attack. It also could have been hit by Ukrainian-friendly air defence on a mistake. Although I don't want to speculate that is what happened, but that is a possible chance of what could have happened. Although this is not a common occurrence, this has happened previously. In the early 2000s, there was an F-18 shot down by Patriot air defence missiles. President Zelensky has stated that every death is a result of the war. I think this is slightly grabbing at straws here. Yeah, okay, you may be able to link this somewhere, but if a helicopter has gone up to transport someone, officials one place to another in conditions that they may not have been flying in, or there has been an error occurred, to then point fingers at this is because of the war, I think you're drawing a long bow and trying to make something to benefit the narrative of this war more so than actually just what happened. You could also claim if someone hits a pothole and blows their tyre, well, this was a result of the war. Well, I guess, but it just can't be everything. A little bit like we saw with Rona, if you get bitten by a shark and you've got something, then currently it's a result. The SBU they are considering all possible options in this. This is the intelligence services of Ukraine. Everything from breach of flight rules, the technical malfunction, and intentional destruction of the helicopter. And within these several possible causes that they say, and they only state these 3, but I guarantee that a blue-on-blue accidental attack would be also one of those. But we won't know what would happen. But we won't know until later on exactly what has happened with this. But nevertheless, this is a tragic event where 14 people and 1 child attending this kindergarten, this nursery, have been killed. In the next coming days, rumoured on the 20th, we will have the largest, or one of the largest packages, military aid packages given to Ukraine from the United States. And I think what is on everyone's mind here is, will the Abrams tank be part of this? Will the main battle tank of the United States be part of this military aid package? As that we've seen the Challenger 2 from Britain be delivered, and only today they're releasing that it could be more Challengers also given to Ukraine as well. The Challenger 2 being the main battle tank of the British forces. It's been an absolute talking point all through these main battle tanks. In the last couple of weeks, it's what 90% of what I'm seeing is on. And these main battle tanks will support Ukraine, absolutely. Will they turn tides of the war? No. If tanks were going to turn the tide of the war, we would have seen Russia have a lot more success. The T-Series tanks are not bad tanks. Yes, they are nowhere near as good as the Western equivalent main battle tanks. They are not. They're outdated, they're slower. Basically, in every regard, they are not as good of a tank. But with the numbers they have in comparison, if tanks were going to turn the tide of the war, it would have been done and dusted. Although it is worth saying that like a T-90 series tank is not a bad tank, but these were developed before the widespread nature of these top attack ammunitions, such as your NLAWs and your Javelin. If you're not really entirely sure how they work, the NLAWs and Javelins come top down on the tank, being the lightest amount of armour on the front of those vehicles. And these tanks are also a lot less heavily armoured, and they're a lot lighter tank than the Abrams and the Challenger. But a lot of people are pointing fingers at Germany, being, why is the Leopard 2, which a tank is, in many cases, is a far better suited tank than the Abrams and the Challengers, not being delivered from Germany, although Poland and now Finland, one NATO country and one joining NATO being Finland, want to deliver these vehicles to Ukraine, being the Leopard 2 tank, and Germany is putting the brakes on it. And you have to remember that, yes, these tanks are operated by Poland and Finland and a number of other countries. Depending on how their licensing is, depending on whatever else, Germany still own the licenses to build, and they build those vehicles. Same as America. Australia has the Abrams vehicles, the Abrams tanks. We could not give Abrams tanks to Ukraine without America's permission. They own the licensing, they own the production, and at the end of the day, if one of those gets compromised and whatever inside of it is classified has then leaked, then America has to deal with that even if we've given them up. And that is one of the big things holding back, I believe, the Leopard 2s going to Ukraine, is more Germany's military-industrial complex, more so than just wanting to give them a vehicle. Germany is one of the largest donors of all equipment into Ukraine, although it gets a lot of fingers pointed because people say they could be doing more in comparison to their GDP. At the World Economic Forum, which is going on right now, the German Chancellor Scholz has stated, we must avoid a Russian NATO war. And then also continuing saying, we are among the largest supporters of Ukraine. It's also worth noting that Germany's defence goes far beyond what you see of German soldiers and German vehicles with iron crosses on the side of them. Germany has one of the largest export markets of vehicles in the world, and they go everywhere over the world, and even Australia, basically as far as you can get away, has looked at and do operate German vehicles within our military, from they're looking at infantry fighting vehicles, which haven't been confirmed yet, all the way down to we operate Mercedes G-Class vehicles as like fleet vehicles to get around. The export of German vehicles is massive. And there is equipment that has been given from other countries, which is German equipment at the end of the day. And I believe that Germany more so is not wanting to threaten that military-industrial complex, which is massive industry within Germany. But the European Union Parliament has urged Germany again to consider giving these tanks. Will they come through? I don't know. Like they said, if Abrams are committed from the United States, then the Leopards will be committed. And I guess we will find out in the next day or so if the Abrams will be committed. Now, a lot of rumours are saying that Abrams are not going to be part of this package, so then I guess we could assume that the Leopard 2 vehicles are also not going to be committed from Germany. You have to remember, with everything in this, I believe, if you follow the money, you come at a lot of different approaches to this war, to the conflict and what's happening. You have to remember that the military is really three aspects. You've got the political benefits of the military armament combatants. You have the physical combatants themselves, the soldiers on the ground, the tankers in the tanks, the artillerymen on the guns. And then you have the military-industrial complex, which these military-industrial companies are private companies. They are giga companies, but they're not owned by the government. They receive government contracts to, support both those guys we talk of at the front line and the political aspect. And these private companies have a lot of say in their licensing, in their agreements with said government. And you can go down a lot of conspiracy rabbit holes here, especially in the United States, with the biggest military-industrial complex in the world being the US private defence industries, and how they've integrated into war and what has happened on the ground. And you can go down the rabbit holes massively. But at the end of the day, you follow the money and you start seeing where decisions are made and how they're made and what is at cost for some people. Yes, you might see a Leopard 2, depending on the 2A variant, you might see, it's only a $5-6 million vehicle. But if that gets captured by the Russians and reverse engineered or whatever's inside of it, that could then start a huge problem for the private company that then make that. So that private company may be leaning on the government saying, we actually would rather you not do that, and might have it in their terms of service of the export market or whatever. But then there's that also vice versa, where a lot of companies might be going, yeah, we do want you to, give our tank. We do want you to give Leopard 2s, because once you do, well, then we're going to kick back up. You're going to hand us handfuls of money going, well, you need to build all these new parts and components and ammunition and whatever. The best thing that can happen to defence industry's private contracting company, the best thing is a war. You have to remember that these companies make money off war that drives economies of governments. Now, I don't want to sound like a conspiracist, and I'm not backing any conspiracy here, but in the day, for these private defence companies, they want their equipment. They're trying to sell that. And does that equipment sell to countries for the export market, for their local markets, when there's not a war on? No, because you can't justify that happening. And this has been all throughout war, of where parts are being sold, where things are going overseas. It is absolutely wild if you look down that. And if you don't think that these private companies have any pull on these governments, it is just incorrect. But either way, we will see. I think, personally, I do think that these tanks will eventually there will be so much pressure from the European Union that these vehicles will eventually make it into Ukraine, especially with the UK putting forward the Challenger 2s, that we will see apparently the next couple of weeks, with America putting the Bradleys, and the Bradleys have already been seen with Ukrainians in training on them, and they're somewhere in Europe, if not in Ukraine currently. So I think we're just taking baby steps towards this. For a combative action at the front, you'd think you'd give it all at once. You can start to give some rationale to these baby steps when you look through glasses of a level of proxy war between Russia and the West, that if we gave everything at once and ended the war, as well as the opinion of many being that they are leaking in this equipment, slowly drip feeding it in to continue this process of war, to wear down the Russian military forces as much as possible. And you can look at the $100 billion given and the close to $70 billion from the US, and that number will jump a lot within the next 24 or 48 hours, as somewhat of a good deal. If America has given, 1/10 of their military budget for the year and has, taken out 20, 30% of the Russian forces, where the Russian forces before this war was seen as being the major adversary for the United States, you can see the US is getting a fairly good deal out of this. Their adversary is getting worn down at a rate costing them, $100 billion. It might be a couple $100 billion by the end of this, but without any US soldiers being, chucked on the front line and killed, other than the foreign fighters who have gone. But as far as uniformed guys within the services, giving the US military industrial complex a massive kick, because these companies, these giga companies, are getting a shitload of money to, develop new weapon systems, or, make new artillery shells, or make new tanks, or make spare parts. All of that. There's a lot more beyond the surface level of this. The surface level looks like we'll hand tanks to Ukraine from the army and they'll just be used. And there is things that are on that surface level. But when you're talking these high-end equipment that are still in service with these countries, it gets a bit murky. But look, thank you for your time. I know I've been a bit quiet here. I've actually been, I flew to the US and back last week to do a little bit with Speak the Truth, and I enjoyed that. Now I'm back and hopefully releasing more of these. I just need to get back in the groove of doing this all by myself. But look after yourselves. Have a great day, and I'll keep you updated as I can.